every negotiation is different. We work in a service industry, and in the service industry, you have to build relationships, right? You have to have respect and an understanding of both sides.
If you know anything about the NBA, or maybe even Adele, you've probably heard of Rich Paul. As the founder of Clutch Sports Group, he represents stars like LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and Draymond Green. But his journey from selling jerseys out of his trunk in Cleveland to becoming one of the most influential agents wasn't easy. It was built on grit, vision, and bold ambition. In his book, Lucky Me, a memoir of change and opportunity, Rich shares how his upbringing shaped his approach to business. He's learned to look for opportunities that others miss and to scale smartly through unique partnerships. His work now goes beyond basketball. His company's ventured into baseball, soccer, content creation, even athletic wear. And he's not done yet. Here's how Rich Paul is redefining the world of sports management. Why don't we start a little bit talking about your background? Just you grew up mostly in Cleveland. You grew up in hard circumstances. Can you talk about how your upbringing has influenced who you are today?
Oh, I mean, it had probably the ultimate influence on who I am today. Just, laying a foundation of principles, right? My dad was present, which was very important. And I think there's a difference between being present and being present, right? I think people think because you're there in the space that you're actually present. No, he was actually present in terms of caring and wanting to make sure I had the proper knowledge that may not have existed in the textbook, right? Just multiple examples of what hard work was really like, perseverance, having to overcome doubt, just this idea of having, to think and dream big and create a vision and then go after that vision.
In your book, Lucky Me, you talk a lot about what your dad taught you. Your dad taught you how to run his successful corner store. He taught you how to play dice, which was craft's like a very big part of your upbringing. But I think for a lot of people, all of those rules could have been, okay, this is how to survive in Cleveland, in this one neighborhood. What do you think made you take those and say, I'm going to take these rules and I'm going to apply them to something much larger than where I've grown up?
But those things are universal. I think it wasn't about necessarily just the one neighborhood holistically. It was about the one neighborhood because that's where I was present and what was in front of me. But when you think about those things, like just really focusing on just how you treat people. If we just lay there, treating people a certain way will get you so far, right? And my dad always talked about it didn't matter the stature, it didn't matter, what they had on, what they were driving. It didn't matter. That didn't matter. At the end of the day, you treat people as you want to be treated, and you lead with that, right? You beat them to the punch in terms of creating what the atmosphere is going to be like amongst two people. You
read them and you lean into where you think they want to go.
And even in the event of their energy is different than yours, rise above it. Mm-hmm. I couldn't be here without that foundation that had been laid in front of me from my father, my community, but also learning from the examples of what not to do and the consequences that came from certain decisions that were made. And so I had a very early understanding of the importance of decision making and the layers of it, right? There's tiers to your decision making. I knew if I laid my bike down at a store that wasn't my dad's, when I come out the store, it may not be there.
Right.
So I started to gain perspective very early on.
Do you think that it is required to have come out of some sort of adversity to be successful in business?
Yeah, I think adversity, it depends on how you look at it. Anybody that's been successful, Steve Jobs had adversity, right? Phil Knight had adversity. It depends on how you're packaging the adversity. My adversity instilled something different in me, right? And I think how I had to grow up different from those guys. They may have had adversity in just a business idea.
Yes, some kind of stumbling block along the way.
1,000%. Right. But you got to remember, my adversity starts when I wake up and walk outside as a black man in America. That's the first step of adversity for me. So now I have to get past that. So then you can start to take the other steps. And, again, there's a fire that's built inside of you. Either you're going to do it or you're not. I know that there's probably going to be a lot more no's than yeses, but if I focus on the yeses and build upon the yeses, then it's okay for me. For every 3 no's I get, if I get 1 yes, then I'll just keep building on the yeses. I'm not going to focus on the no's. That's just part of it, right? There's certain things we're making excuses for, but it's up to you, right, to make certain decisions. And I made decision to persevere despite all these different things. You know how many challenges it was for me when I left, a so-called prominent representation company that was never going to give me the opportunity I gave myself. Today, the business has changed. I'm looking at my business today totally different than how I looked at the representation business yesterday. And so I think one of the most important things you can have is vision. Visionaries are a lot different than executors. You have the vision and then you build the team to execute on that vision. That equals success, right? Steve Jobs wasn't a coder, but he had a vision, and he went and got the people that he needed to execute on that vision.
So talk about building Clutch, how you learned to go from a visionary / entrepreneur to someone who is now going to build an institution.
It's like driving a car. You have to manage transitions in life. You have to manage transitions in business. I think business and life both comes with a transmission, right? And having an understanding of when to park, when to go in reverse, when to stay neutral, and when to accelerate, right? In life, having this understanding that my life is coming with a transmission, it saved my life in a lot of ways. You know why? Because, you know what, guys? I'm just gonna sit still today. I just don't feel the energy. That's me being in park. I may want to back out of this situation early, right? Because I see I'm filling the room. Mm-hmm. That's me going in reverse. I'm gonna sit here, I'm gonna observe. That's me being idle. Oh, things are going great, let me accelerate. That's in life. In business, it's the same thing. I sat in park for a long time, playing my role. I think sometimes you're parking it to star in a specific role, right? I think everyone tries to skip steps and expedites, and they overvalue titles instead of starring in their role. It's very important to star in your role. I think there's a world where, going in reverse could be not necessarily a physical thing, but you have to take yourself back to the steps you took to get here.
But you're now like leading a convoy.
Yeah, no,
you got all these people following you. So how do you do it?
It's harder as you scale up.
Right.
It's much harder.
So how did you learn how to do that? How did you learn how to manage? How did you learn how to get the most out of people?
You just got to feel your way through.
Got it.
I literally felt my way through. I worked in an industry that was very competitive and very small-minded, and it still is.
Very transactional, right?
Yeah, think about it. We don't have a union as representation, right? Most companies lower fees. They'll do anything to represent the client. So there's no consistency in the business. I had to feel my way through. I did have some people I asked that were in my position previously. I did ask them, if you could do something different, what would it be? And they said to me, focus on scale. I would scale properly. That really hit home with me. I had the understanding that the athlete was changing. Information was becoming more accessible. Many kids, when they have a toy chest, they don't play with every toy in the chest. But they want to have every toy in the chest just in case they need to play with every toy in the chest. That was my partnering with UTA, right? I foresaw this already. I saw how they would be great partners with me and add the resources necessary without me having to go out and try to buy them or find them. They were already there. I just needed to have the wherewithal to understand that I needed to partner, or I wanted to partner to better represent the client. And so again, this wasn't something that someone came to me and said, you have to do, or let me show you how to do it. There was insight of, hey, certain people are looking, etc. But I was such in a silo that many people didn't think they can even get to me. And you have to have an open mind when you're growing a business as well, because if something's working, you want to sit there.
Right.
But you can't sit in your success.
Let me ask you a question about one of your skills that I think people would love to learn from, which is negotiation. When you see people negotiating, what do they do wrong? What can they learn about how to be better?
Formality.
What do you mean?
I think I might be the most unique negotiator in our business because there's no formality with me. There's a lot more feel than
What do you mean
formality.
by that? You mean like...
Well, people take, okay, let me get this sheet, and it says this player shot 38% from the field.
Right.
They shot, they scored. It's like, I don't care. Every negotiation is different. And again, we work in a service industry, and in the service industry, you have to build relationships, right? You have to have a perception of respect and an understanding of both sides. Like, you have to understand your client, but you also have to understand the position that the team is in. And you have to know that the GM or the president of this team, yeah, they may be making most of the decision, but they may not necessarily be making the final decision. And then you have to implement the talent, right? Because we all are playing a role here.
When you got involved with the NBA,
Mm-hmm.
and you started doing things that the NBA was not comfortable with, you made trades much more public than they were okay with. There was a Rich Paul rule at one point.
True. But all those things came from, again, if you take it back to the origin, just a place of care. I wasn't doing that.
You weren't
because
trying
it
to
was
push them.
No.
Yeah.
I was caring about a client because, again, when you talk about comparisons, in our industry, it used to be, if you go back to this draft, I think it's 2009 draft was very loaded with guards. DeMar DeRozan, Johnny Flynn, Ricky Rubio, Ty Lawson. And when you look at Drew Holiday was in that draft, when you look at the guys that did deals, extensions, they were all around the same.
Essentially, they were all
But
getting sort of
essentially,
the
they
same
were all
contracts.
like right in that 41 to 47, 48 range.
Yeah.
But you cannot tell me that all those guys had the same value to their team. They didn't. But it's because, you're focused on the comparison, and we're using it as an excuse. And as most agents, they just want to get their money. So my mentality was different. I'm like, no. So when I did Eric Bledsoe's deal, his peers didn't think he was worthy of $70 million. He had never started. They didn't think he was worthy. And at that time, Kyle Lowry, who I think was an all-star, had only got $48 million. And so going back to being a value add and differentiating, the only way I can differentiate myself from the rest of the pack was by doing what? I can't be the sexiest. I don't have all the resources. I don't have the years and years and years of existence, right? I don't. So when you look at all the don'ts, well, I can't focus on the don'ts. I don't have those, so I have to focus on the do. And the do for me was, I'm going to care about these guys. I'm going to educate them. I'm going to educate their families. And I'm also going to educate the team, because it's not a bully thing. It's a partnerial thing. And I'm going to do everything I can to position my client to help me help the team understand why I have this stance. And they're going to come through.
Here's what stood out to me. Rich Paul is rewriting the rules of sports agency and redefining leadership across industries. When he founded Clutch Sports, it wasn't just about signing big names. It was about transforming the agent-client relationship. He understood that success goes beyond contracts. It's about building trust and helping clients, like LeBron James and Anthony Davis, see beyond the game. But what sets Rich apart is his vision. Whether it's partnering with UTA to launching Clutch Originals or expanding into baseball and European soccer, he's always thinking ahead. For leaders in the corporate world, the takeaway is clear. It's not just about scaling your team. It's about knowing when to partner up, knowing how to leverage the right relationships, and making sure you're empowering your people to think bigger. So tell me, how do you make sure you're making the right connections at work? Let me know in the comments.